Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mohan. I welcome you all to this webinar. And in today's webinar, we are going to learn about how to set up your payroll and how to run payroll and generate payslips for your organization within 15 minutes time. So we'll learn the entire process of how to set up and the month-on-month process of how to run the payroll. And before I begin, I also recommend all of you to install Kredily's mobile application from the Play Store. And you can type in Kredily and you will get the application. Install it. Whatever I'm going to explain in this webinar, you will be able to perform. You will be able to do the same thing in your mobile application as well. So it comes in very handy. So I strongly recommend all of you to download this application. So having said that, let us start this webinar. So as this is about payroll specifically, so I'm going to go to the payroll module first. We are going to divide this entire payroll setup process into three divisions or three categories. The first category is to set up your payroll by defining your company's settings. So now to do that, I will go to Advanced Settings. So we need to understand Advanced Settings is nothing but just defining your payroll components, your PF, ESI and other stuff. Now, so the basic information like your pay frequency, your pay cycle, your attendance input cycle, pay date, everything will be in the first tab. So this has to be, sorry about that. So this has to be set up, and this is all very basic and there's no need to explain. This is a self-explanatory concept, I would say. And then you have your payday calculations wherein you can include or exclude your week offs or include or exclude your holidays. And then you have access control where you can allow your employees to look at their tax projections and tax computation. Then we have PF and ESI settings, which is very important, very vital part of your payroll. This is one of the statutory deductions or contributions as well. So PF can be defined as per your settings. You can add a fixed value, or you can define your own customized formula, or you can add it as 12% of basic, which is followed by most of the organization, or you can make it as 12% of the entire gross salary except HRA, which is recommended by the law as well. And you can include your employer's PF contribution in the CTC, or you can exclude from it depending on your settings. And you can also enable the statutory minimum ceiling, which will be 50,000 regardless of how much your salary is. PF will only be calculated on 15,000 every month. Then you can even individually override your PF, and you can add the PF administrator charges in the CTC itself. So that's about PF setting. And ESI is very much self-explanatory as well. There's nothing much to play around because, as you know, ESI is just 0.75% of gross salary for an employee and 3.25% of gross salary for an employer. And you can include and exclude ESI from CTC as well, and you can allow the individual override for ESI. So individual override means you will get an option, system will give you an option to override this particular component for an individual employee. And then in overview, you will get an option to see your employees' PF and ESI details, or if you want to even add some extra information, or if you want to turn off or turn on PF or individually override PF or ESI for your employees, you can do that in the overview section. If you want to bulk do it, you can just click on the import button, download the Excel sheet, and put all the details in the Excel sheet and upload it back. So everywhere, every single component in Kredily or every single tab that you have, most of the tabs at least, will give you an import option. So you can import a lot of things, almost all the things in bulk if needed. Then you also have the PT settings, wherein you get an option to turn it on, and according to the location that's defined, that's assigned for your employees, the professional tax will be deducted. And you don't have to remember anything. You don't have to do the math and do the calculation according to the state system. Does everything. Just make sure that you define the location for your employees. Then we have the declaration settings as well. Here is where you will define the window for your employees to submit their tax investment declarations. So most of the organization follow it as yearly, on a yearly basis from 1st of April to 31st of March or 1st of Jan or Feb, depending on your preferences, you can set up a date. We also have a monthly option here. If at all you're an organization who follows monthly culture, you can enable the monthly option as well. Then you also have an option to create multiple components that are needed for your salary structure. We have base components, which are statutory components. We have recurring components. We have created most of the components that's needed by organizations in India. But if at all you want to create more components, you always have an option to create more components. You can create unlimited number of components in Kredily. Variable components, same goes with variable components as well. You can create any number of components, but we have created the most usable required components by organizations in India. Then we also have ad hoc components, which are out of the box components. Basically, these are the components which are not defined in the CTC or in the structure. So now how will I define a component? So all of these components can be defined, and the way you define components are very similar. I mean, I would say it's almost same. So now if I have to make changes to one of the existing components, I'll just click on the component. And I'll say if this has to be an allowance or reimbursement or contribution. Depending on what I want this to be, you can select the component type. And then should I include this in CTC or not? That's the call that you need to take. Depending on your component's definition, you can include or exclude it from CTC. Proof required, yes or no. Should this be taxable or not? That is also yes or no. Should this be overridden? Like I said, this gives you an option to override this component's value for an individual employee if you turn this on. And should this component be a loss of pay dependent component or not? So these are all yes or no things which you can turn on or turn off according to your policy. And then calculation type means you can calculate this component in different ways. So you can either put a formula here. I've added 10% of CTC as the formula, so this component will be 10% of my CTC. Or you can even give a fixed value here. I'll say 25,000 rupees a year. Or you can even put it slab wise. You can say that if my salary is between 0 to 3 lakhs, I will give this component as 25k. If my salary is between 3 lakhs to 5 lakhs, I'll give this component as 30k. So you can create slabs. Again, there is no limitations on creating slabs. And as per whatever slab you created, the value will be automatically assigned to your employee salary. Let me just keep it as flat. Same goes with your variable component as well. The only difference here is you will be selecting the frequency of the payout in this component. So if it is an annual bonus, make sure that you select the payout frequency as annual. Half yearly bonus, which should be half yearly. Quarterly, make sure that you select quarterly. And once you select this as annually or half yearly, you should also select the month on which it should be due. So now in this case, I'll say it will be due in December because this is Christmas bonus. Depending on what sort of bonus you are giving, if you are giving Diwali bonus, you can keep it as November or October, depending on when the Diwali is. And you can also choose if the tax should be deducted in the same month or it should be distributed across the rest of the financial year. The calculation type, again, you can either give it a flat value or you can create slabs and have the value. Same goes with ad hoc as well. You can create any number of ad hoc components. Creating ad hoc components, very simple. Just give the name. Should this be taxable or not? Should this be included for ESI or not? And save it. I've created a lot of components, and even if you open your account, you will have a few components which are widely used by organizations. You can even edit the existing component by just clicking on the edit button here. And you can even change the name, change the type of the component. Same goes with your ad hoc deduction as well. You can create a component, or if you want to edit the existing component, just click on the edit logo here, edit button, and you will get an option to change the name, and you will get an option to choose whether or not you should remove this from taxable income for your employees. Then you have an option to add your employees' bank details. Nothing much to understand here. Just click on the edit button and you can add the bank details of your employees. You can also add this in bulk by clicking on the import button. Then you have your payslip settings. We have 8 different payslip formats. Please choose the one that suits the best for your organization. Then we also have bank integration in Kredily. This is one of the coolest features that is offered by any HRMS in India so far. This feature allows you to even release your salary, disperse salary to your employees within minutes without even exporting any detail to an external system. So a lot of companies still export this sheet and submit the sheet in the bank's website. So that's what we are trying to avoiding multiple OTPs, avoiding multiple file transfers and stuff like that. So in Kredily, if you have configured your KredPay virtual banking account, you will get an option to directly disperse salary from here. If you are using an ICICI corporate bank account, you will get an option to directly integrate your ICICI corporate account with Kredily. So if you need more information about it, please do connect with us. I will also be leaving my number and my email ID towards the end of this session. And the next option in payroll setup is your setup payroll option. So I'm going to skip this thing because we have already set this up, the PFESI and everything. So I'm going to go to create structure option directly. So in create structure, you will get an option to create the salary structure required by gathering all the components that you have created so far. So I've created this structure. I'm going to rename this structure as Feb 2022 structure. You can define your basic, you can define your HRA, you can add your PF ESI, and you can add any components that's required by your organization as well. Now, whatever components that we created, you can select the component and you can add the component to your salary structure. And save the structure will be saved. And to assign the salary structure, go to assign structure. Select your employee and select the structure and assign it from an effective date. I'm going to assign this from 1st of March, for example. You can even assign it from a back date. Just make sure that you're doing the right thing. If you have processed payroll, this will still not reflect or impact the current structure. If the payroll is already processed, the data will not be changed. But if you're assigning for a futuristic month, it will very much be impacting the details of that month's payroll. You can even select all of your employees and assign salary structure, or you can choose location wise or designation wise and then assign salary structure to your employees. And once that is done, system will give you all the details that you need to know, that you need to understand before processing payroll for the current month, for any given month for that matter. Now system will show you what's the attendance of your employees for the current month. It says this employee is not present for 19 days, this employee is not present for 16 days, 17 days, and what days these employees are absent. All of the details will be shown, and according to that, the loss of pay will also be calculated by the system automatically. And if you want to make changes, you can always make changes, but system does that by itself. I'm really sorry, I'm just going to select the Feb month's payroll now. So you get the edit option. If you want to make changes to the loss of pay, you can always make changes to the loss of pay, but even system will be calculating loss of pay depending on your attendance rules. The same goes with your leaves as well. And in leaves, system will show you how many employees have applied for a leave and how many leaves of theirs has been rejected or approved. All of the details will be shown to you by the system, and even you can take an action on the pending leave requests from right here. So now let me reject this leave request of this employee comp off. Not possible. You can mention whatever reason that should be given to your employee, but you can take an action from right here. And then you have your salary revision tab. If you have revised anybody's salary in this month, it will show that the salary of a particular employee has been increased or decreased. And if you think that has to be changed, you will always get an option to change it, but system is going to give you an alert about that. Then it will also show if there is a variable component for any employee. So this employee Varun is having a variable component in the current month, which is monthly incentive. So 10,000 monthly incentive is given to this employee Varun. If you want to make changes to this amount, you can click on edit and you can make changes to the amount. Same with ad hoc components as well. In ad hoc component, system will give you an option to add the component. Now let me add an ad hoc component to this employee Rahul. I'm adding an earning component, overtime allowance. I'm giving him 4,500 rupees overtime allowance, and I'm saving this. Oops, this employee's payroll has already been processed for the current month. That's something that I wanted to talk about. So we have a batch processing feature. So I've already processed payroll for a few employees in the system. Now let me add a earning component for this employee. Let's see if the payroll is processed or not for him. Yes. So now I added an ad hoc component, and if you want to hold somebody's salary, you always can go to the salary on hold option, select your employees, and you can hold the salary of that employee. I don't want to do that, but I've already added one employee's salary on hold. If I want to change this, I can click on the edit button and I can change the status, which I don't want to do. And then if at all you want to override income tax or professional tax, you can also do that from the tax override option by clicking on the edit button. But this is not actually required because you can, the system calculates the income tax and professional tax by itself precisely. But for any given reason, if you would like to do that, you can do that. You can edit the income tax and also the professional tax from the tax override section. And at last, your pay register. This is the data, payroll data for the current month, February 2022. Now I've already processed payroll for 2 employees as well. Now if I want to process payroll for the rest of the employees, I can select them. Let me just run payroll for these 2 employees. And I hit the payroll button, run payroll button, and process payroll for them. And if I want to generate pay slips, I'll select these employees and generate pay slips for them as well. Pay slips have been generated for these employees now. And payout can also be done from here. You have the payout button. Select your employees and hit the payout button. The salary will be dispersed within minutes. Sorry, there's some issue with my internet. Just bear with me. Yeah. Select the employee and hit the payout button. The payout will be dispersed within minutes to your employees. And this is almost a spontaneous process most of the times. And then at last you also have an option to generate statutory reports, your PF ECR, your reconciliation report, consolidated reconciliation, gross versus net pay report. All reports can be extracted from right here. So this is the entire process of payroll. So now I'll be taking your questions. If you have any questions, please write your questions in the chat section and I'll be happy to answer them.